water heater. And with federal and state money helping you pay for the HVAC upgrade, that will make this deal even better. Now, the average life of a water heater is 6 to 9 years. Yours is probably past that or getting there. So before you walk into a flooded basement, you can take care of this and upgrade a big part of your home's inner workings and get a pretty good deal at the same time. So call Quality and get a free water heater when you upgrade your home's HVAC system.
Call Quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality, now offering heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
A cancer diagnosis shouldn't have to mean living without joy or optimism. At the Fredert and the Medical College of Wisconsin Cancer Network, we're pushing to put cancer in its place. By bringing together teams of leading specialists who are pioneering ways to treat every type of cancer, and by unleashing promising new clinical trials. Let's push ahead until every cancer diagnosis is a story of survivorship. To learn more about breakthrough cancer care, visit fredert.com/cancer.
Now that the game is done, it's our time to check in.
A wraparound pass out to the right wing. Catch and shoot three from Lopez. And at the last possible moment, he drains the three as Brooke Lopez continuing his torrid stretch of shooting.
Bucks Talk starts now. And now, live from Fiserv Forum, here's Justin Garcia and Brandon Snide.
In the last 5 games now for the Bucks, who Doc Rivers said feels like we're starting to, I don't know if he used the verbiage of turn the corner, but he felt like the run was coming. I mean, part of it is the luck that you're hitting shots, part of it is the schedule that you have, but as we said, look, you just got to start to win games, and that's what this team has started to do now. 855-616-1620, the number to join us tonight on Bucks Talk, as the Bucks now sit at 6-9 on the season in what is suddenly becoming a very bunched up Eastern Conference. Really, what, from 5 through 12 in that East?
If not more, then yeah. It's looking good, though. Justin, I think when you're looking at this team, I would say over the last 5 games, and they should be 5-0, and I think Doc Rivers made a joke of that in his press conference after the game tonight. This is the team, minus, obviously, Chris Middleton. This was the Bucks team that you and I had envisioned going into this year. This is the team that we kind of thought we would see. Obviously, it's a little bit differently. They're more, you and I talked about their identities a little bit different. But being able to wear teams down at the end of games, Giannis absolutely taking over in that third quarter. Dame kind of taking over early parts of that fourth quarter. What did Giannis have in that third quarter? Was it 25 points? And I think that's the most this season for per quarter. 2 game balls for you tonight. Can you take a guess where I'm going?
You're not even allowed to give out.
I'm giving out game balls. That's when we win, we can give out. You and I can give out game balls. 2 game balls tonight. Giannis, 41 points. That's a given. They struggled early in that third quarter offensively, and the Bulls got out to a quick start. Early Bucks timeout. You were kind of getting the feels of another letdown in that third quarter coming out of half after a really, really good first half. So Giannis gets 1. Do you know who the other one goes to?
I would guess A.J. Green.
You know me so well. Yes, A.J. Green. A.J. automatic, man. I think, not to be a little bit dramatic here, but I think he changed the game, Justin. I think when he came into it felt different. Now, you could go a few different ways. I thought a lot of people played really good tonight. My guy Brooke Lopez was fantastic again. I've always been, the biggest Brooke Lopez.
Look, tonight, yeah, maybe, but if we look at this month, I haven't looked to see where it sits. I mean, 106 is a pretty good defensive effort in this day and age, but A.J. Green, to me, is the biggest reason outside of Giannis's sustained excellence for the turnaround that we've seen from this team. His inclusion in the rotation, the minutes that he has played for this group, and I mean it's not just the shooting, it's everything that he's brought to the table that has triggered what we've seen over the course of 10 games now in this month of November.
I think he's just completely changed. We talked about the offense, him coming in and kind of changing it with a three-point shot, but the defense as well. I don't think it's really easy to fall in love with his offense, and I don't know if you caught Chris Middleton earlier in the game. I think it was in the second quarter. I don't even think A.J. Green let go of the ball, and Chris Middleton was pumping his fist. He already knew it was going in. But his defense, man, is just something that I think needs to be talked about a little bit more, and you and I obviously are talking about it. But this first matchup with the Bulls, Justin, back on October 25th, the home opener, it really wasn't a big difference as far as team stats down the line. Now they shot a little bit worse from behind the three-point line, but they made 17 of them, and I thought overall it was pretty good. That I think the difference between this matchup, and the home opener matchup was that the individual defense, the individual effort was better. I mean, outside of Zach LaVine, nobody scored over 15 points.
This team has started to find their identity, and the big thing was you allowed the Bulls to dictate the pace in that game. And Chicago wants to play at a much different speed than the Bucks do. The first 4 or so minutes of this game, the Bucks dictated the pace. It was a slower played game. It was back and forth, but it wasn't until around the midpoint of the first quarter where points started to pick up, and you're like, okay, here it comes. Here's the Bulls getting out there and running. To me, that was the big difference between these games. That was a track meet. That's what the Bulls wanted to play. Bucks were pretty careless with the ball in that game too, and that's just going to play into the hands of a team that's getting up and down the floor. They did a better job of dictating the pace, but also their transition defense was good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tonight,
absolutely.
I don't think the Bulls generated any offense off of that. So the way you look at transition is, I don't want to get too nerdy here and get bogged down in it.
Go for it.
If we're to assume you're going to score X amount of points per 100 possessions, how many of those did you add in transition? I know at one point through the third quarter tonight, the Bucks were at about a +6, which is pretty good. And the Bulls were negative, that they were not generating points in those transition opportunities. So we've seen that start to come down for the Bucks. I don't think we should expect the Bucks to be a very good transition defense, but if that's the case, you better be good in the half court. And that's what we've seen since November 1st. They have been a top 10 defense and a top 10 defense in the half court as well. Like, if your transition defense is around the middle of the pack, that's going to be good enough if you're making up for it on the other end of the floor. 855-616-1620. The number to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. 4th win in the last 5 games, or as Doc Rivers quickly pointed out, 5th straight win. They can't find me twice for this Bucks team. Not just A.J. Green. We'll take a look at some of the other individual performers. We mentioned some of the other notable scores on the scoreboard, so we'll take a look at what's going on elsewhere too, because Doc Rivers said this. A few others have infamously pointed it out as well. It can always get worse for the Bucks, and I think there's one area you would look east to say, yep, it can definitely get worse than what we've experienced and what we are currently experiencing. So we'll get into that conversation coming up next on Bucks Talk.
You're listening to Bucks Talk.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted it close to town, with a picture window overlooking a yard. And you found it. Now, when you sit down to dinner, you've got front row seats too. Your neighbor's daily pickleball game. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
This Thanksgiving, Target makes hosting easy with our lowest prices of the season, like Good and Gather premium turkey for 79 cents a pound and quality green beans for 55 cents. Or classic stovetop stuffing on sale for $1.99 and delicious favorite day apple or pumpkin pie for only $4.49. Plus, get unlimited same-day delivery with a free 14-day trial of Target Circle 360 to make planning even easier. Save more on hosting. Happier holidays from Target. Restrictions apply.
So how do you underpromise and still get the job? We believe in our hearts we're going to do great work for you. We're just really careful about making unrealistic promises. At Semper Fi, we refuse to set the bar higher than we can jump. But be assured, that's the goal, to do all we can to jump as high as possible to try to exceed your expectations. We're looking to break records. That's how you win over customers, get really great referrals, and build a great business. When you're making a decision to hire an exterior remodeling company, character, integrity, and the feeling that the people you're about to hire are truly eager to show you how good they are should stand at the top of your list. This is Brad Youngluth with Semper Fi Roofing and Exteriors, your local, veteran-owned and operated exterior remodeling company. For your new roof, siding, window and door installation, or masonry work, you can count on Semper Fi to keep you safe, warm, and dry.
We keep you safe, warm, and dry, Semper Fi.
No matter how many people are in your family, buying new jackets for the cold weather months can be expensive. But when you shop St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores, prices on cold weather jackets will give you a sigh of relief because thrift store prices mean great deals. And right now we have a great selection. Find great deals on cold weather jackets for the family at St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores on Highway 100 in Layton and Greenfield, 23rd in Lincoln, and 76th and Bradley Road in Milwaukee.
You're gonna love it, St. Vincent de Paul.
The Roundball Repartee returns. This is Bucks Talk.
$122-106 our final here inside of Fiserv Forum. It's the Bucks beating the Chicago Bulls. Another incredible game from Giannis with 41 points, 25 of those in the third quarter. That was one short of his career high for most points scored in an individual quarter. And, you know, the Bucks defense, just part of it is shooting luck. It's a make-or-miss league. And if guys are going to miss shots, that's going to help your defense a lot. But I do think the Bucks are much better positioned in that fourth quarter, especially that back half of the fourth quarter.
16 points in that fourth quarter for them.
And 9 of those came in the first 3 minutes of the quarter. The Bulls go scoreless over the final 4 minutes of the quarter. And the Bucks win once again, fourth win in their last 5 games after this victory tonight. So looking at the season as a whole numbers, we talked about this before, Brandon, in that when you hear those voices that say the Bucks defense and, well, look, their record is because their defense and they can't stop anyone. Like, all right, I know this is a voice I don't need to listen to because you're not actually watching this team. For the full season, they have the 15th best defense now, right there in the middle of the pack. And I think a lot of the conversation coming into this season was, if you can be even slightly better than league average, we assume the offense is going to be elite. So if the defense is there, that should be good enough. Offense hasn't gotten there quite yet. For the full season, they're 19th in offense, but they're 15th in defense at a 112.6, and there's not a whole lot separating them and a top 10 defense season as a whole. You're moving closer to even in your net rating as well, which, again, you know, Doc Rivers said, yeah, I feel good about the team. I obviously don't feel good about the record, but I feel good about the group that we have and what I'm starting to see here. I think I'm going to start to feel better about the record. I think the same can be said for these metrics as well in the net rating. But again, going back to that November 1st date, the Bucks have the 8th best defense, a 5-5 record, 8th best defensively, a 113 offensive rating, which is tied for 16th with the San Antonio Spurs. So still Not where you need it to be, but it's taken some strides there. And they have a positive net rating for the month of November at a 2.4, which is 13th. So you're starting to see some baby steps forward for this group.
And you mentioned, Justin, those numbers based on November 1st, and I would thoroughly agree with that. However, I'm going to go up to November 7th.
Well,
and I think, no, just let me finish. I'm not talking about numbers. I'm talking about when they decided to start Andre Jackson Jr., I think this it really began to take off. And not only did it help in that moment, but I think it allowed what we're now seeing, the actual Gary Trent Jr. that we thought we were going to get. You know, he had those back spasms. He was struggling shooting the ball.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case tonight. He was a big part of that first quarter. 2 big three-pointers right off the bat, right off the bench for the Bucks. I'm not saying Andre Jackson's, the reason.
I get your point. I hesitate to say that was it with the Gary Trent Jr. discussion one way or another, just because I don't know how much of it was just he's in a slump. Let's move him to the bench and you can find your spots with that second unit, versus how much of it was dealing with back spasms.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. I don't know if Gary Trent Jr. even knows, but the important part is that appears to be in the rearview mirror.
Absolutely.
And he has started to give you everything that you envisioned. I know I talked about this. He was one of those guys that you thought on a night where maybe Giannis is out or Damian Lillard is out, or if you had to play without Chris Middleton for an extended period of time, that he was a guy that could get hot in a hurry and start to fuel your offense. We haven't seen that yet, but we've started to see more and more spurts of it. But the most important part is what we talked about with all of those acquisitions, with Gary Trent Jr., with Taurean Prince, DeLon Wright, their defense and being defensive upgrades over their predecessors. With Gary Trent Jr., I think a lot of people thought, I don't know, how much better is he really than Beasley on both ends of the floor? But I think you've seen he hasn't had those outbursts quite yet. I still don't rule it out for him, especially as he gets more and more comfortable with his positioning, with this team, and with this group. But you have definitely seen a much different defensive player than what you had in Malik Beasley.
And I'll go even to the second quarter. There was a Bucks lineup that made me think of you. I'm watching the game. It didn't last long. I think it was maybe a couple of minutes. But it was, at one point, I don't know who the other two Bucks players that were on the court at the time, but the main three were DeLon Wright, Giannis, and Andre Jackson Jr. You and I have talked about it. I know you've mentioned it, having non-shooters kind of paired together, and where do you find the scoring? I think Bobby Portis might have been the other one, so at least there was a little bit of scoring off on the floor. But if you and I have talked about what's the identity of this team, that's kind of the focus, and I think the Bucks are kind of leaning into that. We're probably not going to score 40 points this quarter, but we're going to hold an opponent, to 16, in the last quarter of a game, and this was obviously the second quarter, but that was kind of the moment in the game where the Bucks really took off. It was a single-digit lead for the Bucks after one, and then that second quarter when they rolled out DeLon and Ajax and Giannis, they just completely shut the Bulls down and changed the game going into the half. So I thought that was an interesting lineup, and it wasn't long-lived. I don't think it's was intended to be either. So that just goes to show you, though, and you and I have talked about it, that DeLon Wright's another guy that was off to a slow start. He had a couple DNPs earlier in the year, and he's kind of changed it. He's the first guy off for Damian Lillard off the bench.
855-616-1620. The number to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. Is the identity discovered for this team, and is it actually on the defensive end of the floor? We'll take a look at, we mentioned the next game is part of the NBA Cup. We'll take a look at that NBA Cup schedule and the B group, which the Bucks currently reside in. What a win Friday night against the Indiana Pacers would mean, not only for a group that's starting to dig themselves out of a hole, but for that NBA Cup as well. We'll get into that conversation next on Bucks Talk.
The Hardwood Homilies continue after this. This is Bucks Talk.
Visit family-owned Ken Michaels Furniture and our in-store design centers where you'll still find beautiful, luxurious, heirloom-quality American-made furniture. Right now, save 30 to 35% store-wide and take advantage of our complimentary design services. Whether you're moving, renovating, or updating, our designers will help your vision become a reality. Visit Ken Michaels Furniture in Brookfield on Capitol Drive and in Greenfield on Highway 100 to save 30 to 35% store-wide today. Sleep better and save more with mattresses from Milwaukee Mattress and Ken Michaels Furniture. Handcrafted in our Milwaukee factory, our mattresses utilize natural materials like cotton cushioning, which dissipates body heat, Joma wool quilts for warm wintry nights and cool summer evenings, and natural latex providing superior conformability and pressure relief for aching joints. Stop in today at any Ken Michaels Furniture store and save up to 50% compared to national brands.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS. Visit lifelock.com. Terms apply.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick. Soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks Vapors. Use as directed. Vapo Stick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower Max used for adults only.
Good Karma Brands is proud to be an equal opportunity employer. Our policy is to provide equal opportunity employment, development, and advancement to all current and potential teammates. If you are an organization that maintains a job bank, provides employment information, or gives job referrals, you may request to be placed on the station's mailing list for future career opportunities. To learn more about careers at Good Karma Brands, please email careers@goodkarmabrands.com.
This is Bucks Talk.
16-point home win for the Bucks. As we mentioned, their fourth win in their last 5 games. As Doc Rivers was quick to point out to, I think that was Moniz Khan, the czar of Bucks Plus, who asked him about it, and he quickly told him, no, 5 straight wins. You can't find me twice. We've won 5 straight games.
Sure was.
And, I mean, even tonight we saw at least 2 of those plays where it appeared to be nothing more than a slip, and the Bucks were whistled for a foul. So that is quickly becoming their signature move this season. But up next is the Indiana Pacers, which we haven't spent a lot of time talking about that Pacers team, but I am very curious to see what the crowd is going to be Friday night for that game. It is an NBA Cup game, so we get the alternate court. You're also going to see the statement edition jerseys, the black jerseys with the antlers. Now, 24 hours later, we are going to get our first look in real time at the new City Edition jerseys Saturday night against the Charlotte Hornets. But this is an NBA Cup game. This is a Pacers team that quickly became the Bucks' biggest rival a season ago. A Pacers team that dominated the Bucks. All told, regular season and postseason, going 8-3, I think, in the 11 games
kicked
played.
Them out of the
against the Bucks.
Tournament.
They beat them in the semifinals of the now NBA Cup. And there was a lot of talking. There was, of course, Ballgate with Giannis and his 64-point game. It was a clash of contrasting styles with the young and energetic and up-tempo Indiana Pacers and the old Bucks. But we've seen more of an infusion of youth in this Bucks team, a better defense, a more equipped transition defense from this group. And it's an Indiana Pacers team that, frankly, I know it's early. We talked about some of the same things with the Bucks of give it time, they'll figure it out. They have not been anywhere near the same group that they were a season ago. Their offense was elite. That was, one of the things that gets lost in the shuffle is the Pacers had just as many defensive questions as the Bucks did a season ago, but they made up for it with an elite defense and with Tyrese Halliburton playing like an MVP caliber player for half of the season. He has not been the same player since January, a season ago. I don't know how much of that is the hamstring or what it is, but he is not. He was not that same guy to close out the season. He was not that same guy in the postseason series, and he has not been that same version so far to start this season. So it's been a disappointing start for the Indiana Pacers. They're going to be entering in a very similar spot that the Bucks are. I believe they're 7-9 on the season.
6-9. They got
6-9. They're tied with the Bucks. You're right.
They got smoked tonight against a team the Bucks just beat on Monday night.
So you have the Bucks, the Pacers, and the Nets all 6-9, tied for 8th in the Eastern Conference. We've said the Bucks have started to crawl out of that hole, and they're starting to build some momentum. The Pacers are going to be viewing this game the exact same way. It's been a rugged start, hasn't been what we envisioned, but here's this Bucks team that we really had our way with last year. Let's get this as our get-right game. And I'm curious to see how many Pacers fans make the trek here, especially considering it's a weekend.
Friday night game.
And just what the vibes are going to be in this building.
I'm excited too, Justin, because when you look at the NBA and maybe with other teams, not so much, I guess, the Bucks, we haven't had this rivalry feel. I guess you could go back to the Chicago Bulls 2022, where was it 2022 with that injury, with that Grayson Allen?
Yeah,
but that really didn't last long, and the Bucks smoked them.
In fairness, too, the Pacers smoked the Bucks last year. Like the Bucks have smoked the Central Division up until this season, really up until last season.
Yeah.
They're still beating the Pistons. That's the one team they're hanging on strong against. But the Pacers turned it around a season ago. The Cleveland Cavaliers have moved past the Bucks so far this season. And, the Pacers just had their way with them. And that's one of the things you always mention with these rivalries of, we saw it a couple of days ago in a different sport that we like to say, well, Packers, Bears. The Packers always beat the Bears, so how is that really a rivalry anymore? The Pacers can say the same thing. The Bucks said the same thing about the Pacers and the rest of the Central Division for the better part of 5.5 years, but that's really changed now. To your point, though, you think about the teams that I think are the most hated among Bucks fans. The Pacers, I would guess, are number one.
Gotta be.
Right now,
Yeah.
but you still have – it's cooled down with this team, but the Miami Heat lingering from some of the after effects previously. And the Boston Celtics for the past few years.
Yeah, but there's an unspoken respect, I feel like, with Boston and Milwaukee. It really hasn't been, contentious at all. That off the top of my mind that I can think of the Bucks and the Celtics getting at it the way that the Pacers and the Bucks did in just a handful of games last year. And the layers to this series, too, I think are fun, Justin. You look back to 2019, Pascal Siakam, a huge part of that, Raptors team that knocked off Giannis and the Bucks. And then, obviously, number one on my list, most hated list, Tyrese Halliburton, who overtook LeBron James last year. So he's number one. A big night for him, 30 minutes tonight, 4 points. So I'm expecting much different numbers on Friday night when they come into town, because I think he has it out for the Bucks, and I'm sure all his family and friends will be in attendance like they were last year. But this legitimately feels like a rival. It feels like two teams that really don't like each other. I mean, Dame said it. I believe it was Halliburton did the Dame tap the wrist celebration in the in-season tournament last year, and Dame said, be humble. You can lose it quickly, and then they have seemed to kind of fallen off a little bit. So I'm excited. Definitely, the crowd is definitely going to be into it. I can guarantee you that.
We mentioned the Bucks are 5-5 in the month of November. Their offense has been a middle-of-the-pack offense. Their defense, depending on where you look, has been a top 10 defense, anywhere from 8th to 11th, I've seen. Pacers are 4-6 in that same time period. Offense 19th. This is the team that was up until the Boston Celtics really surged ahead in the second half of the season. This was a team that was breaking the record for most efficient offense in the league a season ago, in league history, I should say. 19th offensively since November 1st, 25th defensively, and they have a -5 net rating. Their defense has been very problematic. They're down a lot of bigs, too. So just as we saw tonight, when it was feast mode for Giannis and Brook Lopez, you may be seeing the same Friday night. I would assume that's going to be a large part of the game plan for the Bucks. Is, not necessarily carbon copy, but let's dominate the paint, and we got to be aware spatially. We got to get back in transition and at least limit those opportunities for the Indiana Pacers. But, as we mentioned, everything starts for the Pacers with Tyrese Halliburton, and for whatever reason, he has just not been the same guy so far this season. 855-616-1620 is the number to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. We'll share some more thoughts on that matchup with the Pacers. Take a look at some more numbers from these last 10 games for the Bucks, and take a peek at those standings in group play for the NBA Cup. We'll get to that after this on Bucks Talk.
This is Bucks Talk.
If you're concerned about heart health, remember that you are not powerless. At the Fredert and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network, we're pushing to outsmart heart and vascular disease by helping to assess your risks and guide you to heart strength, by providing breakthrough research and renowned expertise for treating common conditions and the most serious. Let's stay out in front of heart and vascular disease and embrace every day life has to offer. Learn more at fredert.com/heart.
Choosing the right candidates for any office can be difficult.
My office has lots of drama.
I share my office. But no matter what kind of office you have, if you're hiring, you need ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology finds the most qualified candidates for your roles fast. So, for any kind of office,
I'm really going places in my office.
count on ZipRecruiter to find the right candidates for it. Try ZipRecruiter for free today at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Did you know your skin is the largest organ of your body? Huh? That's why you should shower with Old Spice Super Hydration Body Wash instead of plain old bar soap. Love your skin by super hydrating it with vitamin B3 and glorious notes of vanilla and shea. Did you know that my super hydrated skin is the second largest organ of my body? The first is my heart. Old Spice. Men have skin too. Old Spice Super Hydration Body Wash. 24/7 renewing moisture. With daily use.
A buck doesn't buy much unless you're spending it at Griffin. For just $1 over cost, you can buy brand new tires from us. This is Jim Griffin. Any major brand, $1 over our cost with free tire repair and lifetime rotation. We'll even show you the invoice to prove it. Our only requirements, we put them on for you. Buy one or the whole set. The dollar deal from Griffin. Milwaukee, Waukesha, Fort Atkinson, and Jefferson. Griffin. The buck stops here. The deals on tires don't. That's Griffin.
Not combinable with other tire offers.
If you're seeking Lake Country's finest, don't miss out on the Westerly, opening this spring. Whether it's active fitness, enjoying a swim in the indoor pool, improving your handicap using our golf simulator, or hosting guests on our rooftop patio, the Westerly has you covered. Providing seniors with award-winning residences throughout Wisconsin, this locally owned and operated company is engaged and offers unmatched services. Apartment reservations are booking quickly. Call Stacy at 262-737-5501 or visit livingwesterly.com.
Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
Fourth win in the last 5 tries for the Bucks, now sitting at 6-9 on the season. Tied in the standings with their next opponent, the Indiana Pacers. So you win that game, and as it stands now, the Bucks are back to in the postseason. They're 10th, or tied in a 3-way tie. 8 through 10 with the Brooklyn Nets, the Indiana Pacers, and of course the Bucks. So you win that game, you continue to climb. The Pistons play tomorrow. They do not play Friday. Pistons are currently 7-9. So again, you could start to really make some movement here, as we just have 4 teams in the East with a winning record right now. The Cavs are 16-1. The Celtics are 12-3. The Magic are 9-6. They're winning without Paolo Banchero right now. Their defense is what's winning games for them. And the New York Knicks are 8-6. They're about to be 9-6. Just blowing out the Phoenix Suns right now. And then you have the Atlanta Hawks and the Miami Heat as your 5 and 6 teams right now at 7-8 and 6-7. That was always the blessing of this start for the Bucks. Is, we talked about this early. every team has those stretches where you win 2 of 10 games or somewhere around there. Some of them have them multiple times. Unfortunately for the Bucks, it came when all of the attention is there, when the season is just starting. Players have some of those stretches, like Gary Trent Jr.'s slump, as we mentioned. How much of that was a shooting slump? How much of it was due to the back spasms he was dealing with? Who knows? Brooke Lopez, everybody but Taurean Prince and A.J. Green struggled to shoot the ball early for this Bucks team, and that was the other part of, man, all of these guys are having this slump right now, but you've slowly started to see them pull out of this, and it's not just the identity discussion that we had over whether or not it's defense for this group, but it's everything else we talked about of the roster just making more sense this season. It was a hard sell to pitch that at 2-8. But now when you see winners of 4 of their last 5 and everything else, the last 10 games as a whole, you can see the makings of that. These groups work together. And one thing that we did not mention is, number one, we heard before the game, and the Bucks updated their injury report, that it is a dislocated shoulder for Ryan Rollins. A very tough break for him there to have, I guess we can say, breakout performance that he had and then get injured in that game.
Diving for a ball.
Doc Rivers said that you have 2 options with that. You can have surgery, or you can basically just give it time and then push through. And Ryan Rollins is going to elect to do the latter here and just play through it. Trying to find the way that he put it exactly, but the gist of it was those are his 2 options. He's in a tough spot. I think he's going to give it a go. With that injury, you have 2 choices, play or do surgery. At this point in his career, surgery would be very difficult for him.
Absolutely.
I mentioned, after the Rockets game, Ryan Rollins was out here shooting. Yeah. We saw it again tonight. Yeah. He was out here for about 10 minutes after the game ended.
Looked good.
Doing some drills and shooting. It's going to be a pain tolerance thing for him, but he has really made a case, and I know it's a much smaller sample size than Ajax and A.J. Green, but he made a case for playing with what he brought on both ends of the floor. All of this to point out, this is the second consecutive game we did not see Pat Connaughton on the floor. And Doc Rivers said after that game against the Rockets, this does not mean Pat Connaughton is out of the rotation. We liked the way things were going defensively. I liked what I was seeing from this group. I didn't want to break away from it. Doesn't mean he's buried on the bench and he's never going to play again. We didn't see him tonight. And these things are going to continue to happen. I mean, Doc talked about it. It was one of the first questions he took tonight about Chris Middleton and, finding spots for guys, the impact that you've seen from those names that we mentioned, and Ajax and A.J. Green, and what that's led to, and shortening minutes for some other veterans that you really leaned on heavily. And the question basically, number one, how much is Chris progressing? How close is he to a return? But, going off of that, when he does make his return, what does that mean for these guys that have kind of carved out a niche and really found their spot in the rotation? And Doc basically, reading between the lines, said, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but that's a good problem
it is
to
a
have.
Good problem. You and I have talked about that, having a good problem when on your bench you look down and you see Andre Jackson Jr., A.J. Green, and then eventually Ryan Rollins. Hopefully he returns. What a game it could be for him Friday. I don't know if he's going to return. Obviously, you saw him the last 2 nights, shooting around here at the end. But a good night for him to kind of get back into that lineup if he does Friday against Tyrese Halliburton. And sometimes, Justin, it's not necessarily about who you play. It's about when you play them. The Pacer team, 1 win in their last 5 games, struggling a little bit, and you're getting a little bit of injury luck come Friday, so you're not going to have Andrew Nembhard or Aaron Naismith, who absolutely, both of those guys, torched the Bucks last year. And another point I want to make, because you mentioned the team struggling to shoot the ball to begin the year and how that has kind of changed. And because of that changing, Justin, I think we've kind of, I don't want to say overlooked, because I think we've probably mentioned it. Damian Lillard has kind of struggled shooting the ball.
He's really struggled.
He's really struggled, but you haven't necessarily it hasn't been an eyesore because you're like, man, you got 41 from Giannis, you get 21 from Brook, 27 from Brook, who led all scorers on Monday night. So the way that this team is able to snap out of those funks, there is a boatload of talent that if Damian Lillard goes through a stretch, I don't think Giannis ever will because he scores in different ways and he's so dominant. But it goes to show you that this team is a lot better, and the things that you and I have been preaching are true. I mean, when you get Gary Trent Jr. going, Taurean Prince has been absolutely awesome. AJ Green, Andre Jackson Jr. as that connector. Him and Giannis have developed a little bit of a cool connection. It doesn't always look right, but it works. And you get these guys playing in the direction that we thought they were going to go into the beginning of the year, and a stretch where Damian Lillard's having doesn't really get noticed, and you win 4 out of 5, or if you're Doc Rivers, you win all 5.
Yeah, I do want to get into that conversation. Damian Lillard and what we've seen from him, some of the struggles that he's currently going through, and just him snapping out of this, what that could mean for this team, and those offensive numbers that we've talked about from this group. We'll get into that conversation coming up after this on Bucks Talk.
You're listening to Bucks Talk.
Call quality for the signature service you deserve.
For 60 years, we've been known as Quality Heating, offering the highest levels of HVAC expertise. But when I took over for Greg, I saw the potential to add services for all your home needs. We do heating and cooling so well, I figured, why not offer new trades to give all-around home service to our customers? So along with heating and cooling, we now offer top-flight plumbing and electric services. There's no subs here, and we all work under the quality code of taking pride in the Midwestern work ethic, and more importantly, Midwestern morals. Much of our trade has gone corporate with private equities, but we remain a family-owned company. This is Anthony Zanevsky with Quality, offering heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric. For the signature service you deserve, call Quality.
Call quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality, now offering heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric.
By now you've probably figured out what's most important to us at Semper Fi is our reputation. Building a great character-driven remodeling company is actually quite easy. It's just the first 20 years that are a bit challenging. Great companies are collections of great people, and we have great people. They're the ones that helped us build our reputation, but they only come after you've built something they want to be part of. We don't necessarily have to look for good people. They come to us. And that's what you want when you hire an exterior remodeling company. Someone who's going to stand behind their work, and a company that is truly proud of their people. And it's because they do great work. And when you're ready, we'll do great work for you too. This is Brad Youngluth with Semper Fi Roofing and Exteriors, your local, veteran-owned and operated exterior remodeling company. For your new roof, siding, window and door installation, or masonry work, you can count on Semper Fi to keep you safe, warm, and dry.
We keep you safe, warm, and dry. Semper Fi.
Modern technology can detect a heart's condition, but not the heart's intentions. Pastor Hector Hoppe says Jesus sees what's in our hearts, but what's in his heart.
Jesus Christ, the absolute owner of creation, gave everything to save us who had nothing but sin and misery.
Guest speaker, Pastor Hector Hoppe, this week on The Lutheran Hour.
The Lutheran Hour, Sunday mornings at 6:30 on WTMJ.
The Round Ball Repartee returns. This is Bucks Talk.
All right, 4 wins in their last 5 tries. They now look to push that to 5 out of 6 in an important early game against the Indiana Pacers Friday night. Again, that's a 7 o'clock tip now. It was listed at 6:30. It's been pushed back to 7, so make note of that. We had a chance to hear some of Giannis's post-game commentary a couple of minutes ago, talking about a lot of what we heard Doc Rivers say, that this team's just in a good place right now, and we still have work to do. I think the way he put it was, we got to keep moving forwards. We don't want to move back to where we were a couple of weeks ago here in this season, and the pace that this team has played at, the defense, and the contributions from Brook Lopez, AJ Green, a handful of these guys, has really helped spark this turnaround for the Bucks here, really starting in the month of November. Damian Lillard, though, mentioned some of the struggles we've seen overall from this Bucs offense to be in the lower half of the league, close to the bottom 10 for a large portion of the season. Remarkably, Damian Lillard is still averaging 25 points per game this season, shooting 43% from the floor and just 33% on his threes. He is finding ways to score without that shot going down. He is getting his teammates involved and facilitating. He had 10 assists again tonight. He struggled mightily tonight. He struggled mightily against the Houston Rockets. But he hit the game-winning shot against the Houston Rockets and was able to weave through the paint to get that layup to go. Tonight, with all the struggles, you still looked up and said, man, Dame had 20 points and 10 rebounds. But in this stretch of November games that we keep pointing to, Damian Lillard still averaging 25 points, so he's remained consistent. And he's scoring around the same amount of points per game. But it's just the efficiency that just is not there, or has not been there yet, I should say, for Damian Lillard. The moment it does get there is when this offense is really going to take a step forward. And I still believe it's going to get there. I think you've seen much better chemistry between he and Giannis. And the nights where he and Giannis are moving the ball around, I think Doc Rivers talked about this a little bit early on in his comments. I haven't looked it up, but when he and Giannis combined for 17, 18 assists, like those are games the Bucks are typically winning because of what it means that you're getting offense from Brook Lopez, you're getting offense from A.J. Green and these other guys, and then you have those two to lean on. But even with those shooting struggles there, I don't think it's the same thing we said about Gary Trent Jr. I don't think the shot just evaporated for Damian Lillard. I would be more open to that conversation if we weren't seeing some other things. The burst is still there. He's still able to get into the paint and finish there at a better rate than he was a season ago. So that's what gives me the encouragement. And, just that pairing. I mean, we talked about this earlier in the season. It's not just for Dame. Look, if it's going to work with Dame, part of this is Giannis and Dame together. Like, Giannis' screen setting has to improve for Damian Lillard. That's part of why Brook Lopez is so good on the floor with him. I can't remember what game that was when we really had that conversation. But from that point forward, it's not just for Dame. Giannis has been a much different screen setter since about Game 5 this season.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And if you're looking for the optimistic view for this Bucks team, Justin, kind of just to go off your point here real quick, I don't know off the top of my head if they played a complete game this year.
No.
All 4 quarters.
No.
And I understand that 6-9 isn't sexy. Like, Doc Rivers said it, not really where we want to be. We've struggled mightily. There hasn't been a stretch where this team has, okay, everybody's kind of on the same page, and you're 6-9. It could be a lot worse. I mean, you look at Philly, who, despite the injury tonight to Paul George, had all of their superstars playing. Look, that gives me optimistic views for this team, Justin. I think they are better, and you're seeing it kind of turn when Gary Trent Jr. starts playing a little bit better. You get A.J. Green involved. Andre Jackson Jr. gets into the starting lineup. So I'm optimistic about this team. I'm excited. It's got kind of a little bit of a more energetic flow to this team, from a fan's perspective, to know we haven't played all 4 quarters of a game yet. And, man, we're right there. This should have been our fifth straight win, 4 out of 5, and you have an absolutely great opportunity to make another, big important win on Friday night.
I would just say you could look at it the other way, too, and say the fact that this team has not put together 48 minutes yet.
100%. They're also
I need to see that move, but I do think you can point out it started to become 42, 43 minutes more versus...
Especially tonight.
Yeah, versus, man, it was 24, or it was just 36 minutes. Like, that was one of the bigger problems for this team earlier in the season. As we start to wrap up here, you have something planned.
It's not really planned. It was actually texted to me by a friend, and it got me thinking, because I feel like you and I will disagree on this. and I think 3 out of 5 will agree on, your top 5 most valuable Bucks so far this season. I think we obviously will agree on Giannis and Dame, or maybe. But it got me thinking a little bit, and it sounds like, you would name off 5 guys and be like, without a doubt. But then you kind of think a little bit differently. Now, keep in mind, MVPs doesn't always necessarily mean best player. But who, in your opinion, fits into that top 5? It's fun to think about because there's more than 5.
Well, so you mean value versus
correct,
best.
or that could be best.
Well, no, I mean you're determining this, so
yeah, go for it. Value.
Giannis, Brooke Lopez, AJ Green, Taurean Prince. And the last one is tough because Dame still is bringing you value.
He is. He's attracting double teams, and
it's tough
late
to
games.
argue against the game winner, and he has had small bursts.
Even though they lost, he was huge in that Cleveland game where Giannis didn't play.
Other guys have been instrumental. Andre Jackson Jr. has given them a spark, but we've seen what the leash is with him, too, that, it can get herky-jerky offensively. Tonight was the first night in quite some time the fouls became an issue for him as well, and we've seen Doc Rivers have a much quicker leash with Ajax and a lot more trust in A.J. Green. I suppose I would still say Dame for the last one for now. But, Taurean Prince is tough to argue with because you haven't had Chris Middleton, and he has filled in admirably.
Shooting the ball remarkably.
Giannis and Brooke have been their 2 best players this season. And A.J. Green, as we said at the start of the show, has been, it's not one guy that's responsible for everything. But if you were to say outside of Giannis, who has had the biggest impact on what we've seen this month, it's A.J. Green.
See, you doubted this. You kind of were hesitant when I brought this up, but this got you thinking a little bit. I got you digging in the back of the brain there a little bit. I was pretty much on par with you. I just went Andre Jackson Jr. Instead of Prince, but I can see, I 100% see the argument, the case that you would make for him. I'm a big Andre Jackson Jr. fan, and I think since they've gave him more minutes, look at Monday where he played 4 minutes and then he sits for 99% of the game and then he comes on for the last possession. It kind of shows you, the importance of him. But you could go in a few different ways. So I value that the Prince selection, and he's been shooting a career best thus far in the season.
The last thing to point out as we wrap up here, Van Fias, a friend of the show, you can find his work on Brew, who points out, so Dame coming back from the concussion now has played 2 games, and again, a concussion that he suffered when the official hit him in the head.
That type of year for us.
But since returning from the concussion, he's 2 of 16 on threes, but 11 of 19 on twos. So, again, you still see the fearlessness and you still see the ability to get into the paint and beat bigs with his speed and use his body to protect the ball and finish. The shot just hasn't been there for not only these 2 games, but the last handful of games. I think the last 5 games that he's played in, it hasn't been there. But just as we said with, Gary Trent Jr. and some other guys, I have no reason to believe that shot isn't going to start to fall at a much more regular cadence. Friday night, the NBA Cup group play second game here for the Bucks. It's their final home game in the NBA Cup, as well as your final 2 are on the road next Tuesday against the Miami Heat, and then the final one may be the most important depending on what happens tomorrow or Friday and Tuesday, and that is in Detroit against the Pistons. Pistons right now are atop the Bucks group, Group B. They are the only 2-0 team in that group. The Bucks still have the highest point differential, though, so you beat the Pacers, you will move past the Pistons, and then it may all come down to that final game of who makes it. That's the same way it was last year when the Bucks had their final game against the Miami Heat. The winner of that, or if they won that, they were guaranteed to advance. You may be looking at the same situation this year in the NBA Cup. But Friday night, Bucks and the Pacers. We'll get a look at the NBA Cup floor and the Statement Edition jerseys. And then the following nights, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, we see the City Edition jerseys for the first time Saturday night against the Charlotte Hornets. Friday night, though, 7 o'clock tip. 6:30 is when our pregame coverage begins. And as always, be sure to stick around after the game for Bucks Talk. Brandon and I will talk to you Friday night.
Hey, this is Steve Scafidi for Advent. I had some snoring issues that kept my wife up at night. That led to poor sleep and a lot of